Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Reptile Rejects podcast. Today, we're going to introduce ourselves as the co-hosts. I'm Michael Gillon, and this is Dominic Carbonneau, and we are the Reptile Rejects.
Totally destroyed my name, but I'll take it.
Sorry.
Okay,
I
it's
thought I
great.
had it.
It was close, honestly. I didn't know how to say your last name, but Dominic, the last name is Carbonneau, but you're close. I just got to say it with my. All right,
Yeah,
keep going. Go on with your intro. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
no worries. Alrighty. So, here we hope to cover some lesser known species and some individuals in herpetoculture's past and present, and we may stray from having the most unknown individuals, but we hope to produce some good content that everybody will enjoy, even if there's only going to be one or two listeners. But we'll let you guys decide on that.
I mean, we're both probably bigger snake people than anything. That being said, we want to make it a reptile podcast and talk just about anything out there. I think both are interested into snakes, so I'm guessing we're probably going to have a lot more snake people than anything. But I could totally see us drifting away and doing the crocodilian show, Colonian show, a show on, I don't know, man, anything and everything, right? So I think it'll be interesting to see where this takes us. We both have been on multiple other people's podcasts and have been kind of just chatting up the idea of doing one day, even if, like you said, one or two people listen to us. Anything is better than nothing. So we're up to,
Yeah,
well, give it a shot, see how long we last.
exactly. There's definitely some people and topics that we've probably both been wishing were maybe more talked about or had a couple more shows on, because it's always good to listen to those, and even more shows on topics that have been talked about, but there's only one or two of them. It never hurts to have one or two more. So stuff like Agurnia and West Indian boas and certain rare tree boas, as well as certain rare pythons and everything. And definitely some old school herpers that have some good stories to tell still. We don't want to let any of that be lost in the future.
Both such very different keepers. Like you're much more of a colubrid guy, right? You're much more in that sector. I'm much more into the Python realm. So it'll be interesting depending on the guests and what we talk about. At one point, I'll be the newbie. At one point, you'll be the newbie, and it should be able to give a good different point of views on everything we talk about. So I think it'll be interesting. I hope so. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I hope to learn something about at least one thing every podcast. I think that's a pretty reasonable goal here. Yeah.
So you're the much more organized person than me. So I know you've put down an outline. I'm just completely winging it. So why don't you start up with a couple of the questions you want to chat about, or how do you want to do this?
That's good. Alrighty.
You
So
got it.
what got you started in the reptile hobby and got you keeping snakes in the first place?
Before I answer that, I'm just going to say that I was talking to Mike just right before, and I think we should do probably a podcast just on him and then one just on me to introduce ourselves, and people can just skip right to it and go to other people if they want to. So I'll do this kind of fast, but I was a kid. I was 15, 16 years old, always loved animals, chased after every single animal back there. And then one day I remember I had a girlfriend and she was going through the Penny Saver, which is like our little local garbage newspaper that nobody read back then because when people actually read newspapers. And there was a little ad on there that said, looking for zookeepers at our little local zoo. And it was a brand new little reptile zoo. Like, when you have those strip malls, like six or seven stores, there was one tiny little chunk of it and they just opened it. And man, I applied as a volunteer, worked there. I ended up working in the zoo and it grew considerably bigger. And worked in the zoo for about 10 years and kind of started from there. And then in the mid 90s, found out that somebody told me that they saw a python for sale at a reptile store. And I was like, what? Can we swear? Did we establish that? We could swear, right? Are we making it explicit or not? Not sure. Your voice is gone right now.
It doesn't matter. We can play it show by show.
You already muted yourself right off the bat. Okay, so yeah, and kind of bought my first typical ball python because that was the only thing that was there. It was a wild caught. It had no morph, nothing like that, and one snake went to two, and then I went out of ball pythons and into a lot of different things. Funny to say, my third snake was actually a colubrid, was a bull snake. Always had a huge love for bull snakes. And then after that, I kind of went into Noah's Ark, branched into lizards, even had some crocodilians at one point. Worked with a lot of everything from venomous to, all various animals in the zoo. And now my collection mainly, basically is just all snakes. So, how about you? What got you started? How did you end up where we are now?
Well, it's hard to say where it started because I remember going back to probably back when I was 5. We went out to the the dinosaur museum out in Drumheller, Alberta, which was definitely a really cool place to see. So I would say I was the classic dinosaur kind of kid that morphed into going to the local pet store. And then you saw back then we could still keep caimans and big snakes here in BC. So we had the local pet store had spectacle caiman and a Burmese python, and then they would still get in wild caught emeralds and stuff. Since then, that's all kind of died down, and there's not as many local mom and pop shops that keep really cool reptiles. But there's definitely one or two that still get some good reptile selection and good dry goods selection here. Um, but my first snake was that I purchased was at the first BC reptile show I went to back in 2011 in September, and we got two male Kenyan sand boas that my dad was able to convince my mom that they were a great first snake because they hid all the time in the sand, and yeah, and that's where it started. And then the next year I got a female Kenyan sand boa, and then it kind of stalled out there for getting animals. But I still have those. I still have one of the male sand boas and that female. I've had 5 litters of babies now, and they're still going strong. I think she's gravid again this year. But what started that even was watching snake bites with Brian Barczyk when I was like 8 or 9. It was like the thing to wake up every morning that he did it at 6 a.m. and get on the computer and watch the 10-minute video of snake bites, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And yeah, that kind of got me obsessed with reptiles, and even watching some of the not as well looked for or not as good influencers now, but they're back then it was kind of cool when you're 8 or 9 seeing venomous snakes and big retics and stuff on the internet. And now you obviously look on things differently, but back then I thought it helped spark my interest in where I am today. And then I took a pause. I played kind of pretty high. I played pretty good, or I played fairly high level rep baseball for 5 6 years, and then I decided I didn't really want to go in that direction for college. And then at some point it kind of switched, and I was like, oh, well, the snake thing's still going on. I still have a couple. And then I always kind of kept my toe in it, and kind of kept looking at the forums when they still existed, even 7 8 9 years ago. I think the Canadian reptile forums are still kind of around. And that kind of morphed into me getting back into it and getting albino boa, and then getting some Bolivian boas, and then some olive pythons. All that's been kind of moved on since I don't really want to. Didn't realize that wasn't probably what I should be keeping, and wasn't the real direction I wanted to go into. But it was a good start to get back to where I am now. And then I went through back in 2019, I went through like a hognose snake phase and got some kind of cool hognose and tried breeding those for a couple of years. And that was a steep learning curve with having to feed so much and the babies not wanting to eat. So it was definitely a lot different. And then I realized that wasn't totally what I wanted, because although they're awesome snakes, there's something about keeping stuff that people don't appreciate as much, and keeping stuff that, like, because I'm not here to make money doing this. So it's kind of, for me, it's more of a hobby and something just to come home and relax and sit down in the reptile room and kind of see what's going on. So I decided to keep more species that kind of tickle me that way. If you, so yeah, it was definitely hard to hard to explain all the routes to getting to here. But now I'm actually on the board of the BC Reptile Club as the membership administrator person. So I get to help out my local reptile club doing that, and help out the shows, and also help out some good reptile breeder friends that come out here from Alberta. And yeah, I've met lots of good people in it, and it's always a good time chatting and meeting new people in the reptile hobby, and finding learning new things all the time.
I feel like there's probably like 40 things I'd like to unpack in that. It's just that big splurt. There's so many questions, but I'm gonna try to keep it down to like almost nothing, purely because I want really like when we do the show just on you. There's so many aspects in there that I want to talk about. I want to know about like the BC club. That sounds pretty damn cool. You were pretty big into boas, pretty big into hognose. You seem to have moved a little bit around. Love to know that. One of the huge things you said though that I want to hit now is it's funny that you talked about snake bites, and this is where I realized you're way younger than me. Okay, because back in my time, snake bites didn't exist. Like for me, it was a VHS tape that you put into your VCR and you would record every single Crocodile Hunter episode that was playing, right? So this is where like you're still in your 20s, or you're hitting your 30s?
I'm 23. I think I turned 20. I turned 24 this December.
Okay, well I'm not gonna. I don't want to make you sound too young, but my son's older than you. Okay. Damn. Yeah. So back then, it was literally like Crocodile Hunter. Everything was Crocodile Hunter. It was the only thing. A lot of other people watched like the Corwin or what's the other guy that always? I'm totally missing his name, but there's you know what I'm talking about?
The one that Phil and that got on, Phil the Nipper, or no?
Yes, yes, he's the older guy.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know if he's
I
the
know it. I watched the whole series that's on Amazon now.
yeah, it is, and it's amazing. Yeah, we'll think about it. We'll get back to it. Or
Yeah.
cut add his name right here now. Maybe it didn't work, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So, but I was a huge crocodile hunter. But it's funny, I listened to him all the time, and he was like the coolest thing ever. And you'd record all the shows. I had tons of VHS tape with all of him. And eventually, though, as you started keeping more and more, you'd listen to the stuff. You'd say, like, "Oh my God, there's so many facts that are wrong." You know, like, and I remember thinking that. But he was the guy that really got me into it. Got me like for that love and that passion. And now you look back at it, it's like it's so sensationalized. It's like the YouTubers that sensationalize it like crazy. But you know what? If it wasn't for somebody really getting me that hooked, I don't know if I'd be here. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, but so much to unpack.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I want to do a show just on you because I got to get to know you better. I mean, we've been chatting for probably about 2 years, but never really. I don't even know if I've even saw your face before. So it's a good look.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I want to say that I think back in 2018 or 19 is when I started listening to NPR, which is another also helps kind of plunge me into this depth of the reptile hobby, as it's a lot as that's just like a wealth of information that you can re-listen to and rewatch multiple times, and you pick out some really good episodes from there, and then it's yeah, it just that's got me into the reptile podcast, kind of listening to it, and since then obviously many more reptile podcasts have come out, and many good episodes have come out, which has helped spark me in that. Oh, and it's Mark O'Shea. That I just remembered it. I can't believe I forgot that.
Now you don't even need to edit it to add it. But yeah, so another thing I think we should say is we're both Canadian, right? You're a West Coast, right? Where in BC? Are you Victoria or are you
I'm just outside of Vancouver.
just outside of Vancouver? Okay, so you're basically the complete West End, and I guess I'm a 12-hour drive from the East Coast. So I'm in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, but it's like a little, I don't know, Vancouver's bigger than Ottawa. We're a 1 million people town. How big is Vancouver? Two?
Yeah, the Lower Mainland itself, I think, is like over 2.5 million,
Yeah, it's a pretty big.
including the whole area. Yeah. So
To go a bit over like what are restrictions? Do you have any restrictions at your place where you keep? Can you keep anything?
I think there's some bylaws in my city, but yeah, like there's I want to say there like you can't technically keep any venomous spiders. You technically can't even have saltwater fish, I think, in our city because which is really odd. Yeah, you can't have coral because it's technically venomous. So yeah, there's some weird odd laws, and yeah, so definitely
No crocodilians, no lizard greater than 1 meter in size, no snakes that are pythons and boas greater than 2 meters. So I can't keep a retic, I can't keep worm, can't keep scrubs, anything like that. Carpet pythons, diamond pythons are like the maximum size limits of bigger snakes that I can keep. Um, Trying to think of what else. There's like all these little bylaws, but there's a good amount. But you can move 10
yeah,
minutes.
we have those same bylaws, and then the provincial laws that we do have here are no real venomous, and there's a lot of rear fangs we can't keep, including barons and false water cobras.
We have
Uh,
the
yeah,
entire province can keep venomous here, just not the bylaws. So if you move 15 minutes, like if I drove 10 minutes to the left, I can keep literally anything. The only bylaw in our province, I think, is whales, which I don't know who would keep whale. Like little things like that. There's literally like nothing. So like one of my good buddies, Shan, he literally can keep anything, and I know a lot of people that keep venomous just 10 minutes away, but just not where we are. I don't know how we got into that tangent. Keep with your questions. Go on up the list, or else we'll never make it under 2 hours.
yeah. Well, there's always never a full limit on a podcast, as we know that some good podcasts lasted 3.5 hours. Although I think today we'll try to keep it to two. So what started your obsession with Morelia? Because you obviously keep a lot of Morelia. So what started that?
Female, and I never put them together. Like nobody thought of breeding back then. But anyway, I'm just saying it as an aside. Like now, it's all about like I need a male and a female. But back then, nobody gave a shit. It was just about keeping, right? So I got those two. Then my third snake that I bought at the pet store, and it just happens to be was this carpet python. I don't know what locality it was. All I can tell you is it had blues, reds, and muddy color. My guess now, looking back on it, it was probably a West Papuan or IJ crossed with a coastal, is my guess. So it was just this, I don't know, this cross, but that was the most amazing animal that I ever started. And it's hard because like I look at a lot of the newbies now and I struggle with their million questions and all that kind of stuff. But I was there too at one point, right? But when I had that, that was the first one. After that, I got bull snakes. I got a pair of what was it, snow bull snakes, and this was like in the early 2000s. So I have no idea. I don't really know where the bull snake market is now. We can bring on a. There's actually a really good bull snake guy in Canada that I'm sure you've seen him on the forums all the time. He would be a really good guest. And
To the Andy
there
Gravestone.
you go. Yeah. So one day,
Okay, yeah,
if
I
you
think
want to
I've seen
do,
him.
yeah, if you want to do one on bull snakes, you should bring him on. Never talked to him though. I'll be honest. Yeah, but I always went back to that. I've had chondros back then too, but I'd get wild caught, keep it for 2 years, get rid of them. I've had scrubs. I've had just about the whole Noah's Ark for a little while, but I always went back to carpet pythons. And then bred my first carpet pythons in the late 90s in the most sketchiest of way you can imagine, incubating eggs in water coolers with like tank heaters and really like, and then I went from the tank heaters to the humidators and all the different ways. I've tried all the different techniques as everything evolved, right? And then eventually, just as you started keeping, I've had boas so many times in my collection. Every time I'd get babies, raise them up till about 3 years, and I'd be like, I just didn't care. Like, when you like love looking at animals, but some don't, and every single time. So as time went by, Morelia stayed. All the other ones came in, left, came in, left, came in, left. And now I'd say I'm very Morelia heavy. I've got pretty much every species you can keep legally, or that is in North America. and I'm slowly expanding into more of the every python. I love pythons in a string. So, and I'm getting into chondros again. So we can talk about that at another point. I still don't have any, but I've been waiting on it
Uh,
for a very, very
nice.
long time. So we'll,
Didn't you breed did you breed Brazilians last year or no? Or was that Shan?
Brazilian rainbows. That was
Yeah.
no, that was Shan, and
Uh,
he bred many, many, and I've gotten some of his babies like twice. Each time I've raised them up to two, three, and I'm like, oh man, I could put something else in there instead of a Brazilian, and then I get rid of them. They're gorgeous. I just don't know, man. Like boas is not my thing. Every time I've tried keeping boas, I can't keep them. I've never bred a boa. I've there's so many species that I've never bred, but that just I don't know, man. Like I just didn't have any interest. But the Morelia have always sparked my interest, and even my Morelia journey has very much changed. I went from initially just breeding everything to then now I'm becoming extremely very much a purist. I think I have three snakes in my collection that are not pure now. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I could produce this. It's worth a lot of money, but do I really want to deal with selling these mutts or these hybrids? And in the Morelia game, like it's just like I have such an issue with so much of the terminology. Like hearing designer chondro or a designer carpet python, man, it's not a designer. It's a hybrid. It's a mixed species. It is not. And why is it worth more money? Like if I get chondros, I don't want to mix them. I just want to have pure localities. Maybe we should bring Ryan on. He'll love this talk.
yeah, Ryan
But
and Nick
yeah,
calling out the hybrid chondro
you know
people.
what? We're going to. So I'm definitely more of a purist now. But back then, before I was like my whole goal was always getting a white carpet python. I always dreamed of a white carpet python. I've been working on that project for about 10 years. I have all the ingredients. I have the triple hets or, but now I'm selling them. I'm ready to finally breed the adults that I've grown up, and I'm not even trying it. I didn't put them together this year, and now they're being sold because I just like I find it tough breeding an animal when you'll have like one or two cool animals and 20 of like animals you don't want. Of like animals that are just like you're like, oh, why did I produce this? So anyway, my journey has definitely moved along and changed as we go on, and after keeping for so long, which I think everybody kind of evolves slowly and changes. Um, yeah. So I don't know. Morelia is just pythons of Australia. It's amazing. It's best
What
snake.
what does your Morelia collection like include right now? Just like a brief overview.
So brief overview. I've probably so without babies, if I never count babies, I always have a collection of about 60 animals. And it never goes over purely because I don't have any room. I only have so many cages, and for something to come in, something's got to go out. So I always sit at 60, anything from the 2 year olds to adults. And in there, and then I have babies. I have a rack that fits just a little six sports. I can go up to about 80 or so babies, and sometimes I have to double up because I have too many babies that year. And that just means I have to wholesale and get rid of them faster because I don't have room. So out of the adults, I'll have I don't know, a good amount of jungles. I have a good amount of coastals. Jungles and coastals are definitely the two bigger ones. I have probably four or five inlands. I have only two diamond pythons, which are like the most incredible freaking animals. The only problem is they're insanely expensive in Canada, really hard to get, and there's not much that is pure. I have a trio of rough scales. I have some Loma pythons. I have a good amount of Papuan pythons too. I've been going down the whole Antaresia line too. I have an adult trio of pygmy pythons. I've just moved my spotted pythons, but I've bred them 3 years in a row, and just those little assassins. Eventually, I moved them along. Um, I'd like to. I'm probably going to try to venture more into the Antaresia. Just get like two or three of each, maybe just to breed them and see if I like them or not, and kind of go from there. Um, Except for that, I'm trying to think if there's any other species that I've missed. Let me I'm just looking down through my head. Is there a species? No, I think I kind of got. Oh, Darwin's. Darwin's as well. which anyway, we can ask, see if Nick will come chat. He loves to talk, and he can tell us why Darwin's and Papuans are the same thing. So technically that's the same thing. Yeah. And I love breeding now. I do it as a hobby, just like you. I've got a real career, and this is just my fun. My hobby definitely pays for everything with a little bit of extra cash on the side, so which tends to always be put into an animals that costs way too much money later on. Kind of go from there. What about you? Why don't you talk to us about your brief collection? Because I don't even think I know what you keep now.
Well, I have quite the menagerie, I would say, because I got snakes, but then I do have one gecko and a couple newts. So I got the Nephrus vertebralis, a midline knobtail that I got from my friend, and then I got a couple Nerugus crocatus, the yellow spotted newts. They're pretty neat. They're pretty cold water, so I just keep them room temperature.
That's a common indigenous species, though. Are you allowed to keep it?
No, that's they're from like Iran, I believe. They're from Lake Urmia in Western Asia. Kind of like there's only like four species of Nerugus, and one of them's the Kaiser newt, which is like really sought after, but we just don't have them in Canada right now, I believe. But yeah, they're super neat.
I thought you said because we have yellow spotted salamanders in
Oh
our.
yeah, yeah, you guys do have
You
those.
said newt. Okay, newt salamander, not the same thing. Keep going.
Yeah,
One second.
yeah.
I'm gonna go mute myself. Okay, go.
And then for the snake collection, I got so this is I'll have to double check myself because there's a I do have still kind of like that Noah's Ark collection, so it's kind of hard to always remember exactly what I have. But yeah, no, I got 1.2 wild rose pass subox or Trans-Pecos rat snakes. Got one Loma Alta Baird's rat snake from Justin Smith. I got one Walma python that I rescued. He's about 16 or 17 now, I believe. I picked him up a few years ago as a really skinny rescue, but now he's a Walma python, so now he just eats quail and does really well. And then my other big project is the Kentucky pine snake. So I got 1.2 of those guys, and then I also held back a couple for my first clutch last year. And I got 9 more eggs in the incubator, so that should be exciting, and hopefully some more Kentucky pines for Canada or the U.S. if you're wanting to pay for the export. Um, and then I still have my 1.1 Kenyan sandboa pair. The female's an anery, and the male's just a good-looking normal snake, and they're both males. Male's 14 and the female's 15 this year, I believe. So yeah, they're still going strong. Hopefully, live another 30 years or 15 years at least. That'd be cool. And then another cool project I have that not many people have in Canada is the Bahama boa. So I was able to acquire from a really good friend a pair of 2015 Bahama boas produced by Jeff Murray, and they were imported into Canada, I believe, in 2018 or 2019. And they are from New Providence line, I believe, based on the his litter records from the West Indian Boas website, which is a great website. Everybody needs to go look at it. It has tons of information on not just Chilobothris, but even the Corrales and the boas of the West Indies. Lots of good information on there. But yeah, no, I'm hoping to breed those now since they're 10 years old and still haven't produced a litter. I got a big clutch of slugs when I first got her, but hopefully this year she'll give me something. But I'm not gonna hold my breath because they don't seem to always want to breed. So that'll be interesting. And then I also have a male produced by Cody Joe who produced, I think, at least the first one in probably 40 years, first Bahama in Canada, and that's from the Grandpa line. And I will be receiving his sire or his dad in hopefully August when I go out there for the Western Canadian Reptile Show in Calgary. So that'll be interesting. That animal was also imported and produced by Jeff Murray back in 2014. So that'll be really cool. I like my oddball brown gray snakes. They're kind of like an inland python, but in a boa. and the babies are very tiny. They could have over 30 babies. I think the record's almost 60 on Jeff's site. So it's hopefully I don't get that much, but I'll be happy with anything at this point. It'll be really cool to keep that line of boa in Canada. They're not doing it for the money. They're definitely they'll be a long-term project for sure. But yeah, they're super neat. Um, oh, and then I also have a pair of black milk snakes because they're like the easiest pet snake you could have. You can keep them. They seem to prefer the low to mid 70s, honestly. And in the summer, obviously, if the room gets high 70s, they don't seem to care. But they never they never stop eating, and they don't seem to ever want to bite you unless your hand was covered in mouse food. They're pretty intelligent snakes, and yeah, they're super neat, and they get just under 6 feet, or sometimes a little bigger, but mine are under 6 feet, so they're pretty hefty colubrid if you feed them a lot. So yeah, they're super neat. They're from the mountains of Costa Rica. For even though most of you probably know that already, but they're definitely really neat. Definitely a super cool milk snake that I would recommend as a beginner snake, honestly, for most people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Uh,
I'm going to speak up for everybody that doesn't keep colubrids. Actually, I was going to tell you, I love the fact that when you give me your Latin names, you just give me the common name because, like, I'm lost. You know how many times I've heard the word sawbox? Like, everybody talks about their sawbox. I'm like, I don't know what the heck. I'm trying not to swear. No, we know we're going to swear. Um, I'm like, I don't know what the heck a sawbox is, but now it's a Transpecos rat. Is that it? Did I get it right?
yeah, it's suboc is short for Bogertophis subocularis. So that's why some of the nicknames for them are like H snakes and I think bat snakes was another nickname they were given. So yeah, they're pretty cool. But yeah, Transpecos rat. It's kind of like it's easier to say than Transpecos rat snake,
It's
but
fair.
yeah,
Just treat me like a newbie because, like, it's one of the most annoying things. Sometimes, like, I listen to color shows all the time because it interests me. But a lot of the times they're talking, it's like it's been now a while, and like I guess I'm gonna have to Google what the heck that name means, right? Because they keep using the Latin names. I've noticed that the community of the colorbirds are very big with their Latin names. Like when you talk about pythons, most people just use the common names. They'll slip out the word every now and then, but with colubrid, like the Latin name is definitely the predominant terminology that's used. And sometimes, like for the guy that doesn't really know what it is, so I guess for our one or two listeners that we'll have in about a month, when you're listening to this, I'll be the guy asking you what it means in case you don't say it because we need to know what it is.
yeah, for sure. I think I want to say that I think colubrids. The reason for that is probably because they're almost broken up into more species than normal, even though they all seem to have their own common name. But I want to say that like they seem to be split up as if like milk snakes. There's 8 different kinds of milk snakes, and they're all technically the same species. They're just all subspecies, right? And all that. So like I think maybe that's why. But it's yeah, I don't know. Maybe colubrid people are just like that.
To say too that even though we're both Canadian, I don't know if we said it earlier, we're definitely going to bring a lot of Americans and people from all over the world if we can. Like the goal is not to just keep it to us, go wherever it is that we go. Sorry to cut you off, man. Anything else in your collection, or is that it?
Let me think. I I don't think so. I think that's all of it. Like I always think it's more than what it is. Oh, I got a gray banded king snake at the last reptile show, so I got a 9 mile, a really cool 9 mile that has like no orange on it from uh from my good buddy.
Because the reason I'm asking you is, so we go to the other show and the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo is usually the one I only go to it once a year. It's 5 hour drive. I realize they have one every week, every month, but that's the big one, right? And I'd love to know how it compares to like the American shows, right? When they talk about their Tinley, they talk about all that. Like, I don't know if you've gone or not. I'd love to know, like, what the heck is the size compared to our size, right? Just to see, like, the biggest Canadian show, does it compare to like a Tinley? I'm guessing it doesn't, right? I don't know. But anyway, getting back. Yeah, have you been?
I want to. I haven't been to yours, but I've heard from friends that. Also your show is also kind of a. They had dogs and stuff there too, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's that much smaller. Like it's definitely a big show. I think it kind of compares, but it's not. It's probably not a Tinley, Daytona, or Super Show size, but it's definitely up there, and it's definitely the biggest show in Canada, hands down. But yeah, no, it's. it'd be close to it, but I'm not sure if it's that big yet. You'd have to look at the numbers, I guess, to see.
The only reason I was asking that is because if I was with my good buddy Shan Melanson has tons of shit, right, too, and he's big into morel. It's like the only other uh, reject like me that keeps that kind of stuff. And they use reject because that's the name we picked. But anyway, he ended up picking up a pair of 9 miles, or is it 8 miles? No, it was 9 miles. And his only had a tiny little orange spot in the back of his head, and that's it. And I was trying to figure out,
Yeah, they're super variable. Like
gorgeous.
I believe I've seen a picture of the parents to them, and they're like normal Blair's phase. Like one of them has like big orange bands on it, and it's just super cool how like Alterna, like you can breed two locality Alterna, and you'll get a variety, which is super neat, right?
When you say Alterna, and I've always wanted to ask, Alterna is just a gray band, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think they used to be different. Like they used to split up Blair's phase, which is like the classic like orange, bold orange, and like gray bandeds, and then they called like Alterna the ones that weren't as like solid kind of orange. Like if you've seen a picture of a gray band, you've probably seen probably both. But I think it was only recently actually on I want to say Chris Painchab's recent episode, well, probably a year ago now with Austin. He talked about how it was only, I think, less than 10 years ago that they actually were like, yeah, no, these are the same thing. They're just different color phases. Yeah, so it was kind of neat to learn that. And also the Blair's phase look, I guess they usually have a bit of milk snake influence in them, which is kind of neat to know because you could
So they're hybridized?
sometimes, or maybe like because they all live in the same area of certain milk snakes and stuff, like the Selenops, the New Mexico milks, which are super hard to find out there. I think guys like Troy Hibbets have bred like those to like a milk snake and produced like all milk snake looking animals, but then also bred the same animal to a gray band and produced all gray banded looking animals. Like it's not they're obviously not all like that, but like you get you because you can legally collect there. They were able to kind of figure that out that some of them are hybrids, which is kind of neat. And it's not like a captive hybrid where it's like necessarily a bad thing. Not that any animal is like super terrible, but it's neat to see how like natural intergrades occur in the wild.
It's not a hybrid, then it's really an integrate, right? Yeah, kind of cool. I get the feeling I'm going to learn so much because like so much of the shit you're talking about, man, I'm just not following. I'm really not a Collier guy, but as I said, he has the 9 miles, and I'm pretty sure the day he breeds them, I'm gonna get. They're just too cool. Like they're just
Yeah, they're neat.
they're pretty cool. He has just the regular typical gray and orange one, and he's had already 2 litters this year, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want any of those. I want the 9 mile. Those are cool. That I got it. And I've never understood. Like I get the whole locality thing, and there's locality in everything, right? And I get fighting, but when it comes to Alterna, the locality insanity seems to be taken to an all new level. And I want to talk to like I don't know. We'll have to do. I know you want to do a lot of the weird off the cuff guests, but I'm down to doing like shows on the typical too because I want to find a really passionate guy to tell me why the heck are people so specific in locality because it really makes no difference whether you breed an animal that is 1 kilometer away. There's no way they're not traveling. There's no way there's no uh, gene exchange there. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't get it. I think it's
I can
insane,
think of a
but it's cool. Like it's amazing. I freaking love it. Like I love having specific. Like I have Jonathan's carpets, which is a very specific locality. I think it's freaking cool because you have a very specific look. So I get the why, but there, like it's like you collected 2 kilometers there. Now it's a new line. It's a new type. It's a new. It's all the same species. I just think that passion and that little micro like it's just it's cool. I don't think there's another specific part of this hobby that is so specific in locality that I don't know.
I think there's some rosy boa people
Oh, really?
that are up there, but rosy boas are just so underrated that they're not as out in the open as the Alterna guys are.
I
But yeah, no, it's hard. I would like to find some of those rosy boa people because I don't even think there's been a real rosy boa podcast yet, which would be super neat. Yeah, I can definitely think of a couple Alterna guys though, and some of them might know a good rosy boa keeper or two.
go by, we'll just expand that interest everywhere and see if we can get anything and kind of go from there. Obviously, I'm going to try to get guests of things that I'm really interested in. You do it as well, and then every now and then we can get just like really like off the cuff. Like there's a couple of shows I'd love to dig into more like virology or into snake sickness or any of those like anything from like the Nido serpentovirus, which I have so many questions. I'd love to get a guy because there's something that's been really, but I'll say it now just because I've heard it now in 3 shows. Heat treatment. And I don't know if you know anything about this, but I want to discuss a paper with some genius and try to figure out what this means. I've heard Nick now say it on the podcast. I've heard 2 other guys talk about it, how nidovirus can be fought with heat. And I want to discuss it. I want to know if it's really true. And I've read the paper, and the paper shows that at 95 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and now I'm saying already more because I don't want people to do it. We're going to put a disclaimer on here. But the paper said that they put diamond, so they grew diamond cells and infected it with nidovirus and put it in an incubator at 95 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 days, and it was nido free. It literally killed everything. And to me, this is like mind blowing. So I want to go into like depth with somebody and really try to fight this because nido's and everything. I don't know if you know about pythons. Like, there's been so many, like, everybody's like hush hush about it. But almost, I'd say 95% of all ball python breeders must have it. It's everywhere. It's just dormant, man, and it's just like it's naturally occurring, and that's one of the big ones. I'd also love to go into all the other illnesses. Colubrid wise, I'll be honest, I'm clueless. I don't know what illness you guys fight with. I don't know what your big issues are, but
Yeah, I think the main one would be crypto, I believe. But yeah, no, I've definitely heard about that. I wasn't sure if I didn't realize it was 95. It sounded more like it was like 90, 93. But yeah, no, I definitely heard that recently about that, and I thought that was super interesting. I definitely want to hear
have
more
the
about it.
paper, man, and I forwarded the paper to a couple of people that I was hoping would reply. Didn't happen. I'm in the medical field for my career, and I've reached out to a couple of doctors that have nothing to do with animals, like that work in research and all that. I'm like, please, like, read this paper. Tell me what you think about it. Like people that are not snake nerds at all, right? Just to see what they think, and I'm waiting to see their answer because there's so many things like, and the other one is boas. I'm trying to think of which one is the boa illness that has been.
IBD.
Yeah, there you go. I'd love to hear more about it, really dig into that. I just find it so interesting because those are such like global problems that so many people deal with, and a lot of them are crossed into the different aspects of the hobby, right? Like the fact that IBD can cross over and Nido can cross into turtles, can cross into other things like that. To me, that's mind-boggling, but I don't have the intelligence to really discuss it more than that. That's why I'd love to get some genius like doctors in there. I have a couple of people in my mind, and I've heard it before, and I know there's been podcasts about it, but so many questions I would want to ask, and it's like ask this, and they don't. They just skip over and go right to the next thing. So yeah,
Yeah, I think it's been a while since somebody's done a Nido podcast, so definitely could use another one, I'm sure.
anyway, it's one of the things I really want. So I'll just leave it at that. And people, do not put your snake in the incubator at 95 for 10 days and expect it to be better. Because I've heard the downside, and I'm going to say it right before, because nobody wants to say it on the air. And I'm putting the disclaimer, but I've heard the possibility of if you put a virus and you kill off a lot of it, are you going to end up with a super virus? Or are you going to end up with an animal that managed to survive at that temperature or a virus, and now the RNA is even stronger or resilient, and what could you cause that could be even worse, right? So there, and all that is the aspect that's not studied. So I'm like, I'd love to know, is that folklore? Is that true? Like, I don't know, man. Like, so many questions. So anyway, I want to go down that avenue. A lot of other things I'm interested in, but that one is definitely one that I want to use this platform to do.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be super interesting to have. Definitely definitely lots to talk about in the future on this podcast, which would be super neat.
Questions you want to go down? We're a couple minutes in now.
Yeah. So, what got you keeping Angolan pythons? They've been like a species kind of like on my mind in the last couple of years, and yeah, they're like I think they're super cool because they're not a ball python. but they're like a mini African rock python, like a lot of guys say. But I know you have your own views on them, so I'd kind of like to hear some of that.
So you're probably expecting it to be good, eh? But my Angolans are for sale.
I know, that's why I want your
Oh,
view on it.
so, number one, they're freaking cool. They're beautiful snakes. They're cool. But I like arboreal snakes. I like a snake that if I hold on to it, it's going to hold on to me. I don't need to fear whether it's going to fall on the ground, right? And a gold python, you can hold on to it, but it's got no prehensile tail. It's a big ball python. Okay, and I'm not going to go down too much my views on ball pythons, but it's basically that. Now it's bigger. The bumpy scales, freaking cool, like amazing. It is a completely different feeling than any other snake. It's very similar to rough scales. Rough scale pythons are freaking like a huge passion of mine. So they have that similarity. Um, Breeding wise, they're not hard to breed. In my opinion, they're not hard. The only problem with Angolans, they take forever to get there. So like you can get baby Angolans, great, good for you, but just don't expect your female to be ready until like age 6, 7. Like I think uh, I I bred them 2 years in a row, and I ended up buying a trio with Shan, and he's now had him at his house because I'm like I just keep him for a while. So and then he bred him now 2 years in a row, and we have more babies. So if anybody's looking for Angolans, reach out. I don't know if they just hatch or they're hatching anytime. But we're both. It's gonna sound so dumb, right? But I love Aussie snakes. They're not from Australia. They're from somewhere else, and that just breaks them down for me, and it's really ridiculous, right? But it's like that end of the and the fact is that they work under the identical parameters of all my other snakes, but I've lost interest. I've realized that I didn't really care that much for them, but they're beautiful. They're insanely easy to keep. They're a very tame species. Babies are a joke to get feeding. They all start feeding right away. The babies are huge, like insane. Like their heads probably like frick man, like 2 centimeters or an inch wide. Like when they're born, they can almost eat like a hopper mice at birth, which is insane. Like it's so easy to establish. Like they have so much amazing things going for them. Now, I don't know, man. I lost interest, and you just gotta accept some species you love, and then you keep, and after a while you're like, nah, yeah. But my favorite African species, you know what it is? African rocks. That that
Oh yeah,
you know
those are
I
sweet.
freaking love them.
Those South African rocks are super neat looking.
Mind if I told you the stories? I had one large African rock that I kept for about 12 years. She was the meanest, most aggressive, horrible snake ever, and I freaking loved her. And I had called her herpes. Don't question the name; it was horrible, and I kept saying it's because it's something you don't want. That's what. But I kept her forever, and at one point I remember I'd move out from my parents' place, and I moved in with my sister. We lived in an apartment, and anyway, she had the cage was 8 feet by 4 feet by 6 feet high, and I built my bed on top of it, like 'cause it was the perfect size of a single bed. But the entire thing was on there. But I remember, like, I'd feed her because I worked at the zoo. We get all the farmers to bring us their animals, like stillborn goats, stillborn pigs, chickens, everything like that. But one day I had fed her a baby goat, and a baby goat's probably like 15 pounds. It's not a huge animal, but anyway, she regurgitated it, and the next day or something, and I was gone. I was gone at work. My sister was freaking pissed off, and she was like, "Oh my god, what the heck is wrong? It smells like a dead body in here." I'll always remember. But anyway, I love African rocks purely like they look very similar to a berm, but they're the complete opposite. Like it's a snake that is like it's not a big freaking blob, right? It's a cylindrical, like it's almost like just a pure muscular machine. Like they're an impressive animal, just beautiful. I don't know even how I got in there, but yeah. So Angolans have a similarity, but I don't know if it just I couldn't keep them. I lost the interest. So
Did you keep them with the shelves and stuff with them, or no?
I've never done maternal incubation.
Or I mean,
Right?
like shelving as like a platform for them to perch up on and stuff.
Well, yes, I guess. No, I'm more of a wood branch
Yeah.
set up everywhere.
Okay. Yeah.
I would have had multiple contact points so that the animal could drape itself over everything, which is mainly what I do. A lot of people keep big shelves. I don't keep shelves in my cages, but I keep a lot of multiple brand. Like my goal is my cages. We can probably go into setups. Probably not this show, but most of my setups are all done. That all the branches are about 10 inches high. Nothing is below that, which is a height where I can change the water bowl, I can take out the hides, I can do everything without lifting branches. I'm all about efficiency and trying to clean my room in about 2 hours. If it's like before, I used to just have, the hide box, the humidity box, and the branches on top, all that to make it look pretty. But then, they'd poop, you'd have to clean it out. I'd keep on paper. And then I'd have to take out the branches, take out the hides, take out the paper, and eventually, so I built everything is tied in the air. The branches are permanent. They're all river washed branches. I don't know if that means anything to you. Like I used to go, I had a boat for many, many years, and whenever I'd see a pretty branch on the side of the river, I'd grab that. And I've been collecting branches for years, like just that beautiful polished branch that looks amazing and things. So I've collected those for years, and so I've always used that. So they would be in a cage that would be like that. So they would climb. They're gorgeous. Like so many people don't realize that non-arboreal snakes will climb. They're going to go all over. You have a 2 foot high cages, it's going to use it. Will it fall every now and then? Yeah, some will, but as long as you don't over exaggerate the height, I don't think you've got any issues there. Yeah,
Yeah. I think I have a feeling with Angolans, they're probably not as much of a stick user, but I think with them, if you the shelf thing, I think people have issues with shelves, especially like Morelia people. I think when they use just like a straight PVC shelf that's just like slick PVC, and then they wonder why the snake's not using their shelf when the snake doesn't even have any grip or contact, so they probably don't feel too secure on it because they can't just get off of it when they want to as smooth as they would like to. But that's just my thoughts and ideas on the shelf thing. I think like you said, like if you use wood branches and maybe put like a nicely cut or routed wood shelf or two in there, I think they would maybe perch up on those more. But just because like Angolans and even Roughies, right? They like to live on those rock outcrop kind of scenarios.
see the
Kind of
roughies
fit
are
there.
completely different. Roughies are like 100% arboreal. Like
But yeah, yeah,
like they don't spend, I'd say 99% of the time they're in the air, in the branches, anything like that. I see them sometimes on the ground, really rarely. I have humidity boxes on the ground, they never go. So it's very different. But I think for the shelf, what I would do if I were to use them and I have nothing wrong with them, I'd probably build a shelf with a lip around all the edges. And it's not just to have that grip. To me, it would be because, so I do keep on paper. Paper is ugly, but I have a lot of mulch in every cage. So I'm a big cypress mulch user. I think cypress mulch is the best thing in the world. It keeps humidity. It doesn't have mildew. Out of all the ones I've tried, I love cypress mulch. But every cage will have a bin with cypress mulch in it, or we'll have an area with cypress mulch just because it's so easy to keep damp. It's so easy to have to keep humidity for the whole cage and all that. But if I had shelves, I'd put that lip in and I'd put mulch just on the top. So you have a section with different, I don't know, different texture, different things to go on it and all that. But anyway, that's where my brain went.
yeah. How much is mulch around out there? Because like I know here it's kind of expensive, so I've kind of gone to more the really good cocoa blocks that are like they're pretty purified, so you don't have to really worry about mold too much. So I'm not too worried about that. But it seems like the cypress out here you can only get in the I want to say it's like Zoom Ed bags or something like there's it seems to be pretty expensive.
There is the Zoom Ed's about $40 Canadian for a cypress mulch, which is probably like I don't know, the picture like a 3 feet by 2 feet bag. So your typical large garden bag of mulch, right? And it's about $40 for the Reptile brand. But if you find a plant store that carries it, and finding a plant store like anything from Home Depot to all that, they don't carry it. But if you find one that has it, um, $6 a bag. So, but you have to find it. And just to give you an idea, I'm in Ottawa. We drive 6 hours to go get our cypress mulch. We do it once a year. We grab a pallet of like 90 bags, and it costs us 300-400 bucks, and we bring 90 bags. And right now I've got about 6 bags left, and it lasts me about 2 years. So you have to find a place that carries it. My understanding, the guy at the store had explained to me why they don't carry it anymore, and it had to do with something about purity and mixing cocoa, and everybody lost their rights to carry it because they weren't ordering. And but this one place off of Toronto that I think a lot of reptile keeper here know about, they only go there to pick it up. And it's funny because I see those bags every now and then for sale at the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo, and they're selling for like $30 instead of the $40 that the one from ZooMed are. And I'm like, I know you paid $6. I know exactly where you got it. Like, because I know, like, after I go to the one show a year, we usually take the pickup, we go there, we load it up, and then we're good for the year. So it's just really hard to find cypress mulch. From what I can understand in the States, it seems to not be an issue. But for Canada, you really got to like keep calling and all that. Like I could get you my contact, but you're, what is it, 50-hour drive for me? So it might take a little while.
Yeah, couple days.
I don't think it's worth it. Not worth it for you. But anyway, so no, I buy the plant one, but it is pure cypress mulch, and it is not dyed. It's not processed. It's just so that's my favorite. I've used coconut. I find coconut it's so freaking dusty, man. And like the lips of the animals, man. I feel like it gunks up here, and you see the saliva, and every now and then you got to kind of go break that. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever had that. Like they eat a prey item that touches it, and then as they're eating it, it all accumulates just on the top and bottom lip of it, and then I don't know.
Is that the super fine cocoa, or is that the bigger blocks
So
that
I
you
used
had
to
that
do
issue with?
the fine one, like you buy like a
Yeah,
large
yeah. I
bag.
use like the big blocks that the ball python guys use, I think, and I get like I usually try to get the smaller ones, like the smaller blocks, but like they're still like probably a centimeter or two big, so they're not. It's like pretty. But I other than the Bahamas and the black milks, I just use them in the hide. So other than that, I keep most of my stuff on aspen, because it seems to work well for most of the colubrids and that. But yeah, no, that's actually good to know for anybody in Ontario. There, you guys
And
do have the option to use that.
there is one place off near Toronto. It's about like a 40-minute drive from not even like a 20-minute drive from the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo. Anyway, I don't know if I'll give it out, but it is there. A lot of people know it, honestly. Just by curiosity, are you filming in your reptile room? Where do you film?
This I'm just in my living room.
So I want to know that because in the future it is an option of you taking out like a Bahama boas because I have no idea what it looks like. I could Google.
Yeah, I probably could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are you close enough to your reptile room to go in and out?
I could probably pull a smaller guy out.
Right now,
I'll
sorry, go ahead.
alrighty. Yeah, I'll go grab it.
No, you don't need
You
to do
can
it now.
keep talking.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
We can do it when you do your
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah,
And
there.
like for the next ones, if you're in your room, it's something that like every now and then we can pull something out if you are. So don't do it now.
That's good.
Another show, I'm curious.
Yeah.
We can definitely,
Yeah.
or the day you bring in a guest for those type of animals, we can talk about it more. But I'd be curious. I just wanted to know, like, I'm filming
For
in my
sure.
wife's office right now, but I think I'm gonna film in my reptile room from now on. I just gotta set it up better because I wasn't really organized. I might do
Yeah,
that
for sure.
because it is warm in there. I'll see if I regret it, and I might move back to the office. But I think that's my goal.
Yeah, that's definitely a way we could do it. We could also, I think we could pull up pictures and stuff on here eventually, or insert it after we record. But yeah, no, that'd be definitely interesting to do a bit of show and tell, and even have the guests do a bit of show and tell if we let them know ahead of time. I think they would be maybe game for that.
I don't know how to do that, but I see there's a chat, just like every other thing. There's a share. Like I know you can sometimes pull up websites and all that. If we figure out how to do that one day when we're slightly smarter, maybe then we'll go down
Yeah,
that route.
yeah. I think for now we're probably gonna do the pre-recorded stuff, but the site that we're using does have the option for live streaming if we wish to do that. So that'd be something cool to do in the future. But for now, I think we want to be able to maybe edit the odd pause and stuff, and see how well we do until we get in a bit of a better groove to do it. Although I think this is going pretty good, so there's not too much to change here, I think.
I'm going to say first, I'm not the techie guy. I don't know how to do any of that. So I'm glad you're figuring it out. So I'll just say I'm going to be the guy who just wings it and hope that you fix everything. Um, but our goal is, I think it's better when you just chat, man. You just go with it. You just, I like your questions and all that. And you know what? I can look at my phone and look at the questions. You did send it to me. So, so,
If you have any questions for me.
well, which question did you just ask me in Golan? Well, you don't keep in Golan. Right.
Yeah.
All right. You chat. I'm going to go look at your email to see what else you have.
Alrighty. Oh yeah, you just had inland pythons uh last week, right? That was super cool. It was the first time they've been bred in Canada.
You know what? So I find it sucks, right? Like inlands are being bred in so many places. How crazy is it that I'm the first one in Canada breeding? Like it shouldn't even be an accomplishment because realistically, like look at how many clutches are out. Like there's probably 10 clutches easily this year. Like people breed them. Like UK pythons have been breeding them forever. There's three or four guys. I can't that I breed them and I see them in the forums, but there's never been any bred in Canada. And until 2 years ago, I was the only one in Canada that pretty much had them. Okay, and they were the hardest thing to find. I worked so hard to try to find pairs. I've had my male. I've had for 8 years, and I've gotten three females. The first two turned out to be male. The next one turned out to be a female that I thought was a male. That probed 16 scales in, just so we're clear on both sides. I was positive it was a male. And I ended up getting it. And this one actually came from Don Patterson that a long time ago got it through Nick Mutton, which came from him. And so like I was amazed with the lineage. I was super happy. And then I'm like, Don, man, like it's not a male. Like it's not a female. Like I'm like showing him videos. I'm like, I'm not freaking crazy. I'm doing both sides. Like it's probing. And he keeps telling me like, I'm telling you, man, they don't probe normally. They probe deep and all that. And anyway, I ended up sending it back to him. I'm like, it's not a female. He kept it for another 2 years. He paired it with a couple of animals to see if it would have a fighting response with other males or a breeding response with female, nothing. And he's like, eventually he's like, you know what? It's not showing interest in anything, but I'm telling you it's a female. I'm like, yeah, send it back. Took it back about a year or so ago. And this year I put them together, and then all of a sudden I couldn't believe it. They were locked up. And I was like, but it caught me so much by surprise that I didn't tell Dawn because I didn't want to tell him that it was now a female. I held everything until I was like 90% sure that she was gravid. Like she was inverted, she was gigantic. I saw her ovulating. I'm like, I don't know if it's still a male. I think these are two males, even though it's gigantic, it's inverted. Anyway, it turned out it's a freaking female. It was a female that probed 15, 16 scales deep. Which you probe your snakes?
Uh, I probe. I try to probe. I still need to learn to sex like for sure, but I have a probe set and I know how to. I at least know how to do it on little stuff. I just haven't had to necessarily do it on bigger stuff yet, but I'll definitely have to learn. I'll probably get a friend over when I have to do it with a bigger species in the future.
Anything you probe, man, males goes really deep, female doesn't go deep, generally speaking. He kept telling me that. And now, so yes, she laid 12 eggs. Two of the eggs went bad within 2 days. They just turned brown and died. And I was like, okay, I guess they weren't fertile. The other 10 went the full distance. All 10 hatched, and that was a week ago. So I decided to sex them. I only sexed them by popping them. I can tell you that right now I'm very confused because I have a 7.3 and I'm not happy. So, but are they males? Is there really seven males and three females? Because now I don't trust the whole sexing technique. But when you pop an animal, it's very different. You're looking for the hemipenes, right? The males pop out a giant, two big pink hemipenes. The females basically don't really pop out anything. Sometimes they'll get just a little tiny pink in there, and you're like, yeah, that's probably the hemiclitoris, but you're not 100% sure. But the males, it's like obvious. Like you can always tell somebody it's like this is an obvious male. Or but the female, you're like, well, it's nothing popped out. You probe it again, you pop it, let's say 6 months later, nothing popped out. You sell it, you pop it again, or you probe and you're like, nothing popped out. Chances are it's a female. Like I'm 95% sure. That's kind of how I work. But with the male, as soon as I see those heavy meat, that's a male. Anyway, so right now I have a 7.3. which I'm not happy because I want to hold back at least one female. And Shan finally got from UK Python, and his 1.1 turned out to be a 2.0. But again, it's probing at 15 scale. Is that really a male? But they're both probing that deep. So I told him I'd get him some female, but now I only have males for sale, which really sucks. Like it's really
How big are his? Are they big too, or are they younger?
probably around 3.5 feet, give or take. But
He could try combating them and see what happens.
inlands don't come back.
Oh,
So
oh yeah, because
that's
they're a bit different, right?
they're
Yeah.
they're they don't come back, so it doesn't work. So I trust me, I've tried. I nothing.
Well, I guess you could throw a male of a subspecies that does combat maybe, and that might give you a bit of a telltale, but
It
it's hard to say, I guess.
if somebody wants
Maybe he has a 0.2 and has two females. That'd be
at this
funny.
point, the problem is I'm at the point where I'm not 100% sure if my sexting, sexing techniques are really working for inlands. Only because that one really threw me for a loop. But I mean, I've popped I pop about 200 babies a year, right? So it's really like I've gotten pretty good at it. I've gotten pretty accurate. Do I screw up sometimes? Of course. But I'd say 95% of the time it's pretty accurate. And I pop again later on, and then I probe once they're a year old. So, and usually once you've got those three confirmations, you can pretty much know. But these ones are really, it's looking like 7.3. Anyway, long story short, I think inlands are incredible, beautiful, underrated species. The camera does not ever gather the real colors of those animals, like those bluish tints. Just they're all docile. They don't bite. They're all like the tamest of the tamest. Like if you compare like an inland python to a Papuan python, the carpet Papuan, like those are little like assassins when they're young, and then they eventually tame down. Inland's like puppy tame, puppy tame. So it's kind of cool. Just very different animals. I ended up breeding him a little colder, but I didn't bring him down to like the spring breeder. So I brought him down like in between like the diamond friendly pythons and the carpet pythons. So temperature wise, and it worked for me. I've heard of people breeding them as winter breeders, people breeding them as spring. I did kind of like the in between. I went colder, but not too cold. So like we're gonna use the Fahrenheit, even though we're Canadian, because we're snake people. Everybody uses Fahrenheit, so I don't know if you say Fahrenheit when you talk about temperatures, but
Yeah, I generally talk Fahrenheit just because
everybody talks
it's way
Fahrenheit,
easier.
right? So I've never actually done it in Celsius. But yeah, I brought them down as low as around 61. I think is the coldest I could get. So which is
That's not too low, but that's definitely not high. So that's definitely what I was kind of thinking when he said that.
colder, but you're going way colder. So for
But yeah, I do stuff in my garage, and honestly, it sometimes gets into like the high 40s when we get cold snaps here, and but generally they're in the low 50s probably for most of the winter. Yeah, and I think this year I kept the subox in a little less than I did in the past because I did lose one male from just after formation, so I think it may have been I might have the 3 months might have been a bit long for the subox. So this time I only did like 2 months, I think, and the one female only gave me two good eggs, I think. And the other gave me four good eggs, so we'll see how that goes. But I think I'm going in the right direction for those guys with that cooling. But yeah, no, with back to the inlands. Have you talked to Dr. J about how to maybe sex them or his thoughts on the inland since he has his own line of them and that?
Gillon you're talking about? Yeah, no, I haven't. But he's one that I would love to bring on the show. So for multiple reasons, for the inland, I'm curious for his virology background, right? Because he's a doctor of biology. Am I right? That's what he says, right? He is.
Yes,
So
just not reptile stuff, but yeah,
I
no, he is
know.
a virologist.
I mean, that's pretty cool. And for pygmy pythons, he's big at pygmies, stimmies, and all that. So I would love to get to really like go deep into pygmies because nobody goes deep enough into pygmy pythons. And I'm really good at reproducing them. Really good at getting a lot of babies. I'm really bad at getting to survive past 6 months. It is horrible. Like there's these tiny little 6 gram animals that are so tiny and won't eat anything that need to be force fed for a very, very long time. And somehow around the 6 month range is where they tend to collapse. And I don't get it. And I'd love to go into that. But for the sex thing, I mean, I'd love to know why it's different. And I don't understand because they're the same thing. They've got the same anatomy as any other pythons.
Yeah.
They're
I'm sure Nick has an idea about it too, or if it's even a problem, or maybe that's just one weird animal or something. That could always happen too. But yeah, no, I'm sure any Morelia guy that keeps them probably has some sort of view on if there's anything there, or if it is actually like a really like a weird thing with inlands. So that'd be super cool because I do find inlands interesting, and I think the two, well, I guess there's three Morelia I kind of would be open to keeping. Like my collection, for some reason I like to hover around like 25, 30 animals, but definitely the inlands, the roughies, and then I didn't realize it till this year, but the gammons, the book cover Morelia, are actually available with UK pythons, and we can luckily still import some of those into Canada. So that'd maybe be something interesting in the future. But yeah, yeah, inlands are definitely neat.
I'd love to have an explanation for how do we get gammon range pythons now that it's identified, but there hasn't been anything from Australia that has come in since 1960, right? There's a few odd ends that have been smuggled. So I,
Well, their zoos are allowed to bring stuff in, right? That's how roughies came, because I believe it was like a Swedish zoo or something that kind of released them to the private sector in Europe. So that's how they came. They came technically legally, and then the zoo let them out, is what I believe. What I believe from there, and then I thought I heard Imbricata came and they were smuggled into Germany or something like that, and then they were given to and then they were confiscated and then given to a private keeper, and then I think the offspring or the offspring of the offspring are then legal to sell. So it's something like that. So that might be how they kind of came along, but who knows, honestly.
far as I know, Imbricata is not available anywhere outside of Australia.
Yeah, I know they're not available yet, but I believe Eric or somebody mentioned that there was some confiscated in Germany. I think this was a couple years ago now, and they were that somebody might, like, nobody knows who has them, but apparently somebody might actually have a pair of animals that were given to them. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the next 5 or 10 years if that was true or not.
It's like that magical portal from Australia to Germany. I don't know how it does it, but there's a door that everything slips right through, right? I don't get it. If it does, I mean, it's amazing. Just
Yeah.
rough.
Obviously, we want stuff to be as legal as possible, so we prefer them to go through zoos and make it out that way.
You know what?
But
If
yeah,
somebody that did something illegal, bad on you. But if eventually it becomes legal, hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. Like I think I heard the story that bearded dragons came in illegally to start with, and like
yeah, I'm sure some did, and some probably came, and it's probably like a mix match. Like there's legal paperwork. There's legal paperwork for shinglebacks. So there's that, and then shinglebacks have been released to zoos and stuff. So I don't know. It's all a kerfuffle now because certain people are enforcing stuff that shouldn't be enforced, and then some stuff is just let through, even though it's probably a little more illegal than it should be. So it's definitely weird and interesting, but yeah, definitely want to keep on the up and up though. No reason to smuggle too much anymore, but yeah.
do you keep any wild caught?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really kept anything wild caught. Maybe fish in the past, but yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not against wild caught, obviously, for the purposes of enhancing the captive gene pool kind of thing. Like I think wild caught has its purpose, but I don't think they necessarily should be for the beginner. I think they're more for a supplemental reason is the best part, or to because we have to remember that like even in the fish hobby, these wild caught animals are actually helping support like whole communities and areas to that like allow them these areas to stay wild. Because if they're not being used to collect fish or reptiles or natural resources, they're just going to mine it or they're just going to cut down the whole forest. So people are going to make their money one way. So if a like all right amount of animals are collected that isn't detrimental to the wild population, I don't see a problem with it as long as it's done correctly. And yeah,
Think of third world countries. I think a lot of it is done and actually doesn't cause any issues whatsoever. But I'd be worried for certain ones, like where I think over collection definitely happens. So I think your point is valid. I just don't think there's a lot of people in those very poor countries that actually go and okay, guys, we can only take a certain amount to this year. So I don't know. I think people will,
yeah.
you know,
I think CITES does help though a bit. Like CITES definitely like they have certain animals that have a cap, right? And you can't even if they're captive bred out of like Indonesia and stuff, they can still only send out like say 20 of this one monitor species. So even if they collect 50 and they breed 50, they can only send out 20. And maybe some people try to smuggle some out, but for the most part, since since it has that classification, it's a lot harder to do kind of thing. So that I guess the CITES does help for some of it because like CITES 2 and 3 stuff doesn't necessarily make it like impossible. You just have to fill out the paperwork and stay within a quota, or maybe ask to expand the quota. I believe they can do.
CITES
But yeah,
one
no, it's all
animals from a protected country, right? Yeah, because so I have my importer and my exporter license. I got it, and I've done them both, and I don't know if it really makes a difference. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I can pretty much export anything, and the government are useless. Like you can write whatever you want on the paperwork, and the people at the border control don't know what they're looking at. Like they have no idea, and it took me a really long time to figure out how to export CITES one animals. And once I did, everybody that told me they're like, every single Morelia are only Morelia variant, nothing else. Nothing else. Don't put anything. I don't care what you're pushing in there. It is all that because that is all that border control understand and will approve. I'm like, and there's been like, I'm not going to go too much into. Maybe we could try to bring an importer or things like that and actually have a full discussion with it. I've had a good amount of experience with it, and it's a really interesting world. So, and I've just used it as an avenue to sell my animals because Canada is a tiny market, right? I don't know if you have issues moving your animals or not. I found ways of moving, which included selling a lot of my snakes to Japan, and it's been good. It's been easy, and because they're Australian animals, you need your CITES paperwork, and honestly, it's so easy. It's not hard to do. It takes a long time to learn it, but once you know it, it's so easy. I don't get how, and I'm not going to name the companies, charge you $200 per head of animals to export a CITES animal, and then 150 and then 50 or $75 per animal. I don't get it because I don't know where that money's going, but that's a gigantic ripoff. Like anyway, I won't go too much into details on that. But if ever we're curious and if ever we want to dig or dive, I'll talk and I'll let people know, man, because it's not hard to export, and I don't get why we're being charged, and I don't know how it is. And the next thing I'll say about export, why is it that we can't export freaking animals from the States? When it comes to CITES one animal, I can get a CITES one animal from UK Python, for example, or from any star pythons. Those are the two places that I've imported from. No issue.
well. I think those are CITES 2 animals. Because CITES 1 is, I think you would have to, they would have to fill out paperwork on their end, and you would have to keep the animals for like 2 generations, and then you'd be able to sell the offspring or something. Like CITES 1 is a little bit more difficult, but yeah, no, the CITES 2 stuff, I think from what it sounds like, it's like I'm right now using a company to try to bring stuff from the States, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife seems to be taking a while with the paperwork, even though they were legally brought in the country and legally captive bred. So that's taken a while, but yeah, it's definitely tough to tough for some of that stuff. I wish CITES one stuff was super easy to bring in, but yeah.
So I mistake. Everything that I said, say CITES Appendix 2. There you go. So you are right. Oh, there you go. Did you hear me? Yeah, okay. So Appendix 2. So yeah, sorry. Just everything I said, just go back, edit it, put the 1 to 2, and this way I don't look really. But yeah, so yeah, Appendix 2. But for some reason, we can't import anything that is Appendix 2 from the States. It doesn't go through. Like, and I know 2 or 3 Canadian guys that used to get things through from the States to Canada, and somehow we can't anymore. And it's been over 10 years, and you'll see like every typical big, there's probably like, I think there's three main people, maybe four main people that export, and it's always non-CITES import, non-CITES import. And they'll bring in anything. So a lot of your animals are non-CITES, right? But for some reason, man, I can't get a python that is from Australia, from the States to Canada. It's so frustrating because they have so much stuff.
Yeah, I think U.S. Fish and Wildlife was given an order from Australia that said that basically they're all illegal, even though some of them aren't not illegal. So they just kind of did like a blanket ban on it, even though I think some of the ports will let stuff in occasionally, depending on the officer there. But yeah, no, it sounds like Aussie stuff's definitely a no-no, but I think people still import green trees and other CITES 2
They're
stuff.
not
I think
Aussie, right? So,
it's the Aussie stuff, and even Aussie blue tongues I think are no-go anymore too, because they were moved on to CITES 3, I believe.
but it makes
So
sense
yeah,
because there's Australian animals that can go to, let's say, Germany or and all that, and the United States animals go to Europe, and then I can take them from Europe and bring them to Canada, but they won't go from US to Canada. And it's so frustrating because like there's most of the animals that we've gotten that would come from the States, we got through Europe because they were imported a long time ago between Nick and between the UK Python, and now I can get them from UK through, but I can't get it directly from Nick. Somehow it just won't go through it. I'd love to understand why. Like Don Patterson
yeah, I think
used
that
to do it all the time because he's got a business partner in the States, and somehow he can't bring anything in anymore. Like a lot of the people I used to do, he's like, it just doesn't work. Fish and wildlife are always stopping. It's so annoying. Anyway, another big tangent about.
yeah, tangents are good though. Tangents make for great podcasts. So I'm always happy to get in deep on stuff because usually as a guest I like to hear more of the ins and outs of certain things that I don't necessarily know too much about. Do you have any questions for me now?
I'm gonna go read. So you keep a lot of different things. Let's go down the color grid. Let's go with what's your favorite species? What do you enjoy keeping? Which one actually like drives you?
For colubrids or my whole collection?
Go whole collection. I still think
I would say
color
right now with the whole collection, I really like these Bahama boas. There's just something about them. They're super neat. Their pairing hasn't been too easy with them as they seem to want to run from each other and don't seem to want to actually breed. But I did end up leaving them together for a couple weeks at a time in the spring, so we'll see if anything happens. But there's always next year, and they've only been here a year and a half, so they might still need to cycle to my room and everything and how I do things. So I'm I'm not too upset about that. But yeah, no, they're a super cool species. They vary so much because like I think the pair I have are siblings because they Jeff Murray and that have tried to keep most of the lines as separate as possible for the future to keep the separate lineage on the three lines that exist, as Bahama boas have. You got the New Providence, which is Nassau, which is like the main island, and then you got Eleuthera, which I'm hoping to import a couple pairs from Steve Woodward down in Arizona, and then you got the Grandpa line, which is not a locale line, but it is it's a lot more brown and almost looks like a Bimini boa, which is a different subspecies of Bahama boa. Bahama boas, I want to say they have 7 or 8 subspecies. I have the West Indian boas book, and it's a great book. It's like a textbook, but like it's a readable textbook, so it's super neat. And it's not huge, but it's definitely a good book with a lot of information in it on all this stuff on West Indian boas. Yeah, I love the Bahamas. They're cool. They get probably 5 to 6 feet. Maybe some females get up to 7, but they're like a carpet python sized boa that has really small babies that need to eat like anoles for the most part. I believe they're big enough to eat pinkies when they come out, but they seem to really like anoles. Although I've heard from some people that they'll take boiled or washed pink scented with lizards. So that'll probably be my go-to when I have to get them all started. But yeah, no, I don't know. There's just something about them. They're obviously a little arboreal. They like to live on the ground a little bit, but they're definitely a more slender arboreal snake from the Bahamas that are very underrated because they're like brown and gray and have some blues in them. They're super. I just like them. I don't know why. I want to say they're a little more beautiful looking than a Puerto Rican, but I would actually hope to maybe import some of those from Europe now that they were actually moved from CITES 1 to CITES 2. So the possibility there is a lot higher now. Even though I was looking back at CITES records from the early 2000s because Jeff Murray has all that on his site, and it looks back in '01, '02, and '03. There's somewhere like 50 Puerto Rican boas over 3 shipments that were legally imported into Canada, and no one seems to know where those animals are now. I have a gut feeling where maybe a couple, one or two might be, but it doesn't sound like anybody's even trying to breed any of those old specimens anymore, which I think would be worth a shot even to get a small litter to keep it going. But yeah, no, the West Indian boas are definitely something I'm into. Maybe there's some other West Indians I'd love to have, but for now I'll stick with the Bahamas. And if I think right now if they're the only species I could keep, I'll just have a couple pairs of them, and I'd be happy. But colubrid wise, I do enjoy the subox and the Kentucky pines a lot. The subox are a nice manageable size, and I enjoy keeping them in 4 foot cages so I can watch them cruise around because those guys definitely like to come and see what you're doing whenever you come in the room and see if you have food. But yeah, they have that look, as Dusty Rhodes wrote in his book, that they have that look and how they just give you that side eye, and they're just watching you every time you go in the room, which is kind of neat. And it's kind of neat when you walk in a room and your snakes are actually like out and moving, and they seem to not be moving when you come in, but after being in the room for a couple minutes, then the pine snake and the Trans-Pecos are all moving around. It makes you enjoy your room a little better than them just hiding all the time. So yeah, yeah. I'd obviously dive into the pits and the subox more in the future because they're really neat. And yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. When you say pits, you got pine snakes, you got bull snakes, you got rat.
No, I just
No,
got just pine snakes. We can't keep bulls or gophers because they're technically all gophers due to their classification. We here in BC we can't keep any garters, any bulls, and technically there's like a bunch of turtles we can't keep because of old taxonomy from like the 80s when it was implemented. So like there's like Asian turtles we still can't keep. Like I can't keep a black-breasted leaf turtle or a Reeves turtle or a Central American painted turtle. Like, I can't keep any of those. Obviously can't keep native painted turtles either, or soft shells, or snapping turtles. But yeah, so there's some different laws. Same with tree frogs. We can't really keep any tree frogs unless they weren't in the Hyla genus in 1982 or whatever.
is that specific to Vancouver or is that the province?
That's just the province. Although it sounds like they're going to update their laws in a couple of years to kind of allow some of the stuff because like people are keeping them here and trying to sell them on Kijiji, and that are our local classifieds in Canada. So yeah, so you see those ads, but then you're like, well, that's technically illegal. I don't know if these people are actually getting like arrested or anything. I don't think Fish and Wildlife is too horny about that, but yeah.
I see every now and then like the old snapping turtle or things like that. I'm like, you can't even keep that. Like that's indigenous to here. Like put it back in put it back in the swamp where you got it. You know what I mean? So yeah. Let's go down another avenue. I think this is one where you're a lot more than me, but herping. Um, do you do any? Do you go anywhere cool? What do you find? Like maybe a quick little blurb because I think you're a lot more of a herper than me. Not because I don't want to be, because I don't think there's a lot around me. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, well, first started herping when I was a little kid, and you'd go to like a park. So down in the lower mainland here, we got a lot of dike systems down by like waterways that protect like the farmland and stuff on the coast. So those are like perfect refugia for and garter snake hibernacula. So often in the spring and the fall, you can just walk those, and you'll pass by an area, and then there'll be like 20 garter snakes that all dart away if you just walk by the edge of the path kind of thing. And we got 3 species of garters here: the Puget Sounds, the terrestrials, and the Northwesterns, and they all will live in similar areas kind of thing. And then as you go to the interior, you'll find a different subspecies of valley garter, which is kind of related to the Puget Sound. So yeah. And then, yeah, no. But my favorite place to go harping, I'd say, is the Okanagan, because that's where we got our rattlesnakes, our Pacific Northwesterns, and we got tons of rubber boas. Actually, it seems like there's some rubber boa spots close to me that I'm trying to find, so we'll see if we can find some of those spots. But we do have a couple of good spots that we almost, I wouldn't say guarantee, but like for sure 1 and 2 nights we're gonna find a couple of rubber boas on that dirt road kind of thing. And then we got western yellow belly racers there, which are neat. The garter snakes there are pretty beautiful too. You got terrestrial garters, not as beautiful, but they're definitely cool still. Painted turtles you see all over the Okanagan. And then gopher snakes. The Great Basin gopher snakes are super neat. And then the hard to find ones is like the only spot it comes up to is the night snake, and the Hitziglia they come up to maybe Penticton, I believe, is where they're the highest they were seen, but there's only been 40 records in the last 45 years since they were discovered in the province. So they're super hard to find, and they're probably only in select regions, and kind of hard to get to regions. Is climbing a rocky ledge and stuff is kind of hard to do, especially when most of it is owned by private land. So yeah. And then there's western skinks out there too, and a few different frogs and salamanders. Yeah, there's tons of stuff out here. Yeah, it's always cool. And then, well, to where we go and find this is out in the Okanagan, so that's good 3-4 hour drive inland through the mountains, and then you get to these are like valleys you have shrubland and longleaf pines and lots of sagebrush, so it's like a deserty, grasslandy feel in the mountains, which is kind of its own feel to it. It's not like going to Alberta, which I recently went to, and it was just flat. And you get some little gullies and canyons, but it's flat. It's nice to see some mountains along with the greenery.
I've been to Alberta actually last year. We did the whole, like the Rockies and all that. It's freaking gorgeous. I
Nice, yeah.
did go to Okanagan Valley freaking like over 20 years ago, and maybe even more. I was a teenager, probably 15 or 16. All I remember we were horseback riding. I did not see a rattler, but we heard a rattler, and the freaking horses bucked and threw one of us off the horse. It was like never even saw the rattler, but we heard it. It was all right. That was my experience. That's the only time I've ever seen it. Well, heard a rattlesnake in the wild. Um, I've worked with rattlers, just not there. And see Ottawa. I mean, around here there's a couple of snakes, but the most common ones you'll see is the eastern garter, which is basically the black and green one. Um, if you go about an hour away, Murphy's Point is one of the places where I think there's over 7 species of snakes, maybe even a little bit. Coolest ones would be like smooth green snakes and stuff like that. I've never seen one. There's black rat snakes, which are highly endangered here. In the 25 years I've ever gone, I've seen 3 in the wild. So they're very, very hard to find, but they're Canada's longest snake, I think. Um, uh,
Yeah, probably next to bulls, they'd be pretty close to that.
we have bull snakes here.
Yeah, Alberta and Saskatchewan have bull snakes. So when we caught some a couple months ago with my good buddy Tyrone, and they were they were a good 5.5 feet, and I think they've probably found some bigger ones. But yeah, no, black rats definitely get big too.
Aren't they called gray rats now? I thought the text enemy changed, but anyway,
I'm not sure. They're black, aren't they? Aren't they black?
they're gray when they're young. The younger ones are.
Yeah,
Um, that there's milk snakes. I found a couple of milk snakes, and then there's a lot of other queen snakes, ribbon snakes.
well, the queen snakes are super rare, right? Those are pretty neat.
Like I've only ever
Yeah, because they only eat molting crayfish or something like that. Like they need pristine water to survive, and they can only eat a crayfish that has just molted.
we have all the typical turtles. I see them all the time. Common snappers are everywhere. We have painted and red-eared sliders that shouldn't be. Well, the raiders shouldn't be there. Um, Landings turtles, spotted turtles, yellow spotted turtles, or some kind of something like that. Uh,
But you guys got bog turtles too, right?
I think, yeah, musk turtles too. Um,
Yeah, musk turtles. Yeah.
Lizard wise, I don't think we have no lizards here. Lots of,
Or no, you got not bog turtles. You guys have wood turtles.
we
Wood
do.
turtles are
I've
the
never seen one, but
yeah.
we had some when I worked at the zoo. They're pretty cool. Like a
Oh, that's
terrestrial.
pretty cool. Yeah, the splotted and woods would be what I would really want to see if I ever came out there. Same with the Massasaugas and the I think an Eastern milk would be pretty cool to flip as well.
The Massasauga Rattlers. It's like a 6-7 hour drive from me, so I've never gone to do that. Um, Herping wise, I've gone a lot of places like to go like on trips. The only one big trip I've ever taken that would not be like Central America, South America, which were all like you know a week on the beach and stuff like that. I did go to Australia once, but I went there with a girlfriend, and it was more about spending time with her. And back then, which I still am now, I did a lot of scuba diving. We did the whole reef and all that. And the entire time in Australia, saw one snake, and it was some kind of a black venomous snake. So that was it. And oh man, if I went back now, man, I just wish I did Darwin, and I did a couple of places, Darwin, and God, it's eluding me. But anyway, the barrier reef, we did live aboard boat there. It was incredible, just incredible. But I'd love to go back to Australia now and herp. That would be like that's the dream. Like, if there's anywhere else. I'm guessing you're gonna go. Where would you dream? Where's your dream? Where would you go herping if you could anywhere?
Say right now, I really want to go to like West Texas and Arizona, but that's probably not going to happen for a couple of years now until we until that settles down. But
We're not there.
I want to say yeah, and then definitely Australia's on there for sure. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't mind going to South America, but I don't know. There's something about West Texas. It just has that feel to it when you hear Craig Trumbauer and some buddies of mine talk about the I don't know, just the herping the road cut and the scenery there. Even like even if I didn't find anything, just like seeing the view of the Rio Grande and the Big Bend National Park and the Davis Mountains, like just all that, and being to those spots that so many people have been to before, or being close to where some of the first specimens were collected back in the late 1800s would be, I don't know, there's just something cool about that. Being able to herp the same cuts that some animals maybe I own or from would be, I don't know, there's just something cool about that, and yeah, spending time, hopefully would go there with some friends and make a week long excursion out of it.
Yep. Okay. We could probably talk herping at some point too, or maybe bring on people there. I'm not really knowledgeable in that kind of stuff. I never did that much, but I think it'd be interesting. You see a lot of podcasts that are kind of going down the herping route and all that. Let's go down the route of been blabbing for a little bit there, but what are you hoping to get out of the show? What what are things you'd really want us to chat about? What are like some of the topics? I know we talked a bit about it, but is there anything else you'd want to chat about that we haven't really discussed yet?
I definitely want to hit. There's definitely some like turtle stuff and like even Agurnia I'd want to hit on. I don't even think anybody's had like a real Agurnia podcast yet, so that'd be super neat to have. Is like those rare skinks and even geckos. I know people have done gecko podcasts, but definitely the rare skinks and maybe some captive turtle care. Because I know there's definitely some good turtle podcasts out there, but they don't really touch on too much of like the basic care even for like musk turtles and stuff that actually like turtles that actually make kind of decent pets.
Do you keep any turtles?
So yeah, that'd be cool to know. No, not right now. I have a friend that has some musk and mud turtles, but yeah, they're neat. They've crossed my mind of wanting to keep them definitely, but I try to stay focused as much as I can.
So I'm going to sound really, really dumb here, but a gurnia is not the same as a bronia, right?
No, they would be different. Although a Bronia podcast would be cool.
Okay.
Yeah, no, a Gurney are like the Gidgee skinks, those like spiny skinks from Australia. You got some like bright orange ones and some more like brown ones. So you got like Depressa, Epsisolus are like some of the more expensive ones. The Epsisolus are like the really bright orange, like $2,700 Canadian ones at Northern Gecko. But you got Hosmeri, which are more of like a beginner, and then you got Stokes Eye, which are probably like the most common of the Agurnia. They're super neat. They live communally, so you can kind of keep like a family of them, and the babies can kind of live with the parents for a year or two, I believe. So yeah, no, it'd be cool to have an expert on those guys for sure, because they're like an underrated species that people now know about, and they're definitely being kept a little more. But I think it's like another good option than people just going out there and getting a bearded dragon or something like that for sure.
Can't imagine spending that kind of money on a little skink. Like to me, it just blows my mind right now. Like I don't know. I've always seen a skink as like a $20 animal, right? So to me, it'd be like, oh my
These are worth it though. They're pretty cool. Like the Stokes Eye are more like $600, like in terms, and then the Hosmeri are like 14. But they have like 2 3 babies a litter, and they'll breed kind of once they get up to size. I think every year or two they'll
god.
throw a few babies.
What's that skink from Australia that lays only like one egg every 2 years? That is like a ridiculous fortune. You know which one I'm talking about?
For the
There
shinglebacks,
you go. So like
right?
to me, like I
Yeah.
hear people talk about that. Like to me, it's just mind blowing, and I've seen them. They're pretty cool. But like,
I think I know somebody that has one or two shinglebacks. Yeah, I think she also has a Western blue tongue as well, or Centralian, I think. Oh, he has a. I'm pretty sure he has a large collection of westerns hidden in that reptile room of his.
have you ever
He seems to post pictures every year and doesn't sell any.
have you ever met him? Or because you must be close enough to him. He's in Victoria.
No, I've never had the opportunity to meet him. He doesn't come out to reptile shows, which is fair. It's with a collection like that, I don't think I'd want to really risk any contamination, but it would be cool if he maybe just came out for a day or something. But yeah, no, I haven't really talked to him too much, but yeah, no, he'd be another cool guest to have on to be
Be
able
able
to
to get him
bug.
on. I'll get him. So then
Yeah, that'd be
I don't
cool.
think he's been on any podcast for quite a while.
Yeah, I want to say I think the last time he was on was maybe when I first started listening to the podcast. It was like 2019, right before the Vin Russo episode on NPR, or after one of the others. I think I was like right when I started listening was because of that one probably. Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I definitely think we could hit some topics that he hasn't hit on yet in his previous episodes for sure.
Issue you've had in your collection, or I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, I would
the
say
negative.
yeah. I want to say I think last year I had a suboc. I tried breeding the subocs last year, and then I was so unsure about breeding them that I left the male in and was trying not to mess with them too much. And then it turned out she had laid the eggs in the lay box, and then they had all. Then I think they had been there for a day or two, so they all kind of turned yellow except one, and then so they all went bad. And then eventually there was one that was probably laid last that I was able to pull out of there, and then but then that one hatched out kinked and stuff. So I, I think something was off with the incubation or something, or maybe it was just the animal it was. So it's hard to say. But this year I'm trying them. They're in the incubator right now with the Kentucky eggs. So I set them to 79.9, which is probably a little higher than it needs to be. But last year I had them at like 82, so I think just that touch lower should be fine for both eggs. And then once the Kentucky's hatch, I'll probably drop it another couple degrees and let them take 90 or 100 days to hatch just to lengthen it out and make sure they're all strong. So yeah,
Isn't that like almost
yeah, it's
temperature?
kind of yeah. Like I try to heat my room, but my room still only sometimes gets up to like the mid or low 70s. So I'm not sure if that would be warm enough, and then I still cut heat at night. So sometimes like we'll get some hot days here where it will stay like high 70s at night, but then I'll still get mornings, cool mornings here where the room drops back down to 69 or so. In the so it's I don't want them to get too cold either. So it's just yeah,
I
yeah. If it was a bit better, I probably would, but I don't I still a little anal about that stuff.
keep 79 day ambient and 77 night ambient, but if I had like call you good, I'd be like, yeah, you're going on the top shelf, and I'm just gonna forget about you. I feel
But yeah, in your room you could for sure do that. Like you would almost probably want to put it mid or bottom shelf even just to. But yeah, no, that would depending on the species, like horns and stuff. I don't think it really matters. You could they would probably do fine wherever you put them in that room. I think subocs are just known for being that touch more finicky for whatever reason. It's probably just something we're missing. Whether it's like I know I definitely did them a touch less. I used a perlite and I did less than a 1.1 weight ratio of water to perlite so, to see if that would help. Kentucky's it just did 1 to 1, and that was more than enough humidity for them. So I try to do a touch less on the subox to see if that helps. Even though where they live in West Texas, like they're in the cracks, they're in the crevices. They're not living out in the open. They come out in the open to hunt, but they definitely live down in those deep crevices where the humidity is a little higher. So I don't obviously don't want to dry them out either. So it's a give and a take, and definitely going to be a learning curve for me on this species. But definitely happy to learn with this. They're definitely underrated because you'll see some in subox in Canada. You'll see some morphs and stuff. Like you'll see the blondes and the silvers and stuff, but you don't actually see too many just normal subox, which is what I'm breeding. So I don't know. It'll be cool to see what happens. I'm hoping for 6 good babies, and I'll probably keep a pair or two back and maybe sell a couple. We'll see.
and when you incubate, are you putting the eggs in the substrate? Are you half in, or are you suspending them on top?
I put them like half in. I just kind of do like the half in. Yeah. I haven't don't think I've had an issue with
I lost
stuff
my
getting
light.
too wet, but yeah. For now, I'm gonna stick with
Can you hear
that.
me?
But if I end up having bad molding issues, I'd probably switch to on egg crate or something. Are you there? Resume. There we go.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know if you'll notice a little gap there. I had a power outage, which totally broke our conversation, but let's keep going. I'm back on.
That is all good. That'll happen, but that's what the pause button's for. So yeah. So to finish off with some final questions, uh, is, which species are you most looking forward to learning about? Because I know, like I have my species that I wanna learn about, but I know you're probably more on the pythons. I'm sure there's some pythons and stuff, or boas even, or maybe some other stuff that I'm not even thinking about that you might want to learn about other than the virology.
So I definitely, if I go down the Python, the couple of ones that really interest me is I'd love to really go deep down into diamond pythons, which is definitely it's one of those species I haven't bred yet and that I'd love to know more about. And a bit more down, like there's a couple of those weird oddball pythons that there isn't really any shows about or anything. So Savus, I'd love to go down and just hear about it. I don't know if I'll ever own a Savu. I love Savus. They're cool. They're just too expensive, so I don't want to spend the money for. But that could be really interesting. Have you ever seen a Savu Python show? I haven't. Uh,
Yeah, not in, I I think there's been a couple people that probably touched on it, but definitely not a Sabu only show. I think there's been like a Dun Pythons only show. Um,
so I was going to
but
say dun pythons too, which is a species I'll probably never keep, but I could like I think it'd be interesting to just bring
well,
somebody
yeah,
on and just like
I'm sure
deep
people will
dive
enjoy
into
another.
those, yeah, like those obscure weird python species that people don't really know about. Definitely want to go down the pygmy route. That one, I every time I've heard people don't deep, deep enough into the feeding, which I'm going to do that purely like for my own gain. Um, Except for that, if we exclude and out of the snake realm, I think my two other things that I freaking love are monitors. I love monitors. I think they're just amazing. I kept a bit when I was younger. I kept a gigantic black throat that was like, I don't know, 6.5 feet. It had its own room for a while and kept it for about 6 or 7 years, and probably kept it really wrong. Just purely because back then we really didn't know any better, right? But I think a couple of monitor shows would be really cool. And crocodilians, like how cool would it be to talk to somebody who did crocodilians? Like I've worked with crocodilians a lot when I worked at the zoo. I've one of our big shows was swimming with alligators, and we had two gigantic alligators. By the end, when I first started, they were tiny, and near the end, they were 8, 9 feet long and a good 300, 400 pounds. And part of the show was going in the water, just picking them up and doing everything with them. They were so like they were just so used to certain keepers that it was a lot of fun. But crocodilians is such an intelligent species that I'd love to just understand. Like I've been out of the zoo game for like over 20 years, actually exactly 20 years right now, probably. So it's kind of like it's I'm out of it, but I'd love to learn more about it again and just get maybe people's view on it. I don't think they should be kept as pets, but I don't know. I don't know if it's the same over there. All the caimans are still imported all the time. I hear of people bringing them in, and they're like, "Ooh, it's just like the little spectacle caimans for $75, or the Cuviers or the Schneiders for 300." I just think it's sad. I think, in my opinion, I think they could be kept well as pets, but I think the majority of people that get them shouldn't be keeping them as pets because they get big. They require a lot of care. They require a lot of room. They require water and land. It's like how many people should keep a mainland retic, right? There's a certain animal that I think many people keep, but only a few should, or a few keep them properly, right? Like I find it hard housing a 6 foot snake properly and knowing I give him enough. How do you do it for a 20 foot snake or a 14 or even a 10 foot snake, right? It's just and then a crocodilian, which requires even more, or even turtles. You're talking about turtles earlier, and like water changes, dirty water. Oh man, I don't know. That scares me. Like if I ever kept a species that required water, before even getting it, I think I would require a full plumbing system with a drain and a faucet and everything, so that when it'd be done, I'd just be like, from an exterior, I'd have a valve on the exterior to drain it, and then I could just refill it without even opening the cage. Like to me, that would be a must. Like that's how I would do my
There's
water changes.
there's some fish people that have some pretty cool automatic water change systems and stuff.
Really?
Although I think with a turtle and a crocodile, you might need to get a bit more in there to get all that poop out. But yeah, no, there's definitely ways you can set stuff up like that. But no, I agree with the caimans and there's definitely retics. Like they're definitely not something that everybody should keep. But like especially with those smaller crocodilians, like they could be kept properly, but just like it's like savanna monitors and iguanas. A lot of people who just get them because they're a little cheaper. Or, oh, this is so cool, but they don't know the long term, what they're signing up for in the long term, right? So it's tough to see stuff just just almost like a throwaway pet, which is sad for such an intelligent animal like a caiman, right? So yeah, I agree. Here they're definitely illegal. All crocodilians are illegal in BC and Alberta, so we don't really have to worry about people keeping those too much unless people are keeping them illegally.
Here, until about 15 years ago, you couldn't keep a crocodile or an alligator, but you could keep a caiman or a gharial, I guess, if we can get one of those. But they changed the bylaw to just no crocodilians. But again, you can drive 10 minutes to the right, and you can keep whatever you'd like. So yeah, people keep them all that. You know what? Talk about savannas. Like I had savannas 20 years ago, and I had like my trio. They were amazing. They were so fun. I had like 2 feet of dirt. They did everything, and I used to see them everywhere at shows, everywhere. I haven't seen a Savannah monitor for sale in years. Have you ever noticed that? Like, do you guys still have them for sale? I don't see them anywhere. Are they still imported?
I think so. I think there was just an import. I think people just there. I think some people were trying to sell them as captive bred, but they're not captive bred. They're $100. They're definitely imports. So that was kind of funny to see certain pet stores be like, oh, we these are captive bred savannas, but like if they're captive bred, they ain't gonna be $125. So yeah, but I hadn't seen them for a couple of years before that. I think so. I think it was just a recent thing that they just brought back in.
Are iguanas legal where you live?
Yeah, they're illegal. I think as long as they're not over, and I'm sure some cities have size limits on them. So as long as they're in a city that allows you to have like a almost an over 1 meter lizard, I think you can. But they're just not available. So I don't think too many people end up buying them, which is probably a good thing.
Us, it's a good thing. By putting that, they've stopped it all. The pet stores don't sell them anymore. They're it's you don't know many people that have them. So
Yeah, I know some of my buddies and that in Alberta, they might bring some in for their shots and that, but they're bringing in like albinos and the more expensive ones that people who are going to spend the money, they're at least more likely to do the right thing for the animal and not just keep it loose in the house like some people do. Definitely heard some wild stories of people keeping iguanas and they're just hanging out on the couch and it's like that's probably not how they want to be kept, but yeah.
yeah, I was wild 20 years ago. The amount of iguanas that would get dropped off at the doorsteps when I worked in the zoo field, it was insane. But back then it was legal, right? So everybody had their little iguana, or like they called it Iggy, right? Everybody was Iggy, and yeah. You know what? I guess we've improved, right? A lot of things have changed, and some of those changes have definitely benefited. I think they benefited the animals, but I mean, my assumption is they all died. You talk about your imports, and you were talking about how many boas that come in and all that, but whenever they import, you can import 50 animals. Doesn't mean there's 50 live animals, right? There's a permit for 50 animals. The majority of importers, when they get it in, like, and I'm gonna refrain from using names in case, but I've been to one of the biggest facility importer that brings in by the thousands of each species. And this was at the late 90s. And I mean, one cage, 3,000 iguanas, one cage, 3,000 anoles, one cage, and like the animals were on top of each other, and the bottom layer were all the dead animals. It was just warehouses of just tons and tons of animals. And just like these things were being picked up by people. Then they would do their ride and go from one pet store, drive for 2 weeks and hit all the pet stores in one or two provinces, and then come back. And so, like you were asking where they've gone, man. I honestly think that maybe 50% of them made it. Most of them went to one here, one there, one here. They eventually died. They never got paired up. Nobody ever bred them. They're gone. Like that's my assumption.
Yeah, it's a good thing captive husbandry has come a long way in even just 20 years, so that's definitely a good thing. And yeah, yeah. So I think another one of the final questions probably anything coming out of the incubator soon in the next week?
Oh. So I can go in about how it's been a very slow year for me. Um, I mean, I've had 7 clutches this year, pythons, which I'm actually happy because it's a reasonable number. I'm expecting probably around 70 babies. I have 2 pygmy python clutches that are due to hatch in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'll be honest, I have no idea when. I'd have to go look at the numbers, and I wrote it down somewhere, but I'm kind of at the point where I just look at the incubator flashlight through the door and I look to see if there's any heads pipping. Nope, we're good. And then I kind of go on. I have 2 clutches of jungles left. I think that's it. One, two, three, maybe one more. No, I think I have one more clutch of something else. All pythons. So, yeah, I yeah. Uh, like last year, I think was one of my biggest seasons. I got 14, no, 15 clutches in total. This year was 7. I've heard a couple of other people saying that this was a slow year or not as productive years as others. Definitely happening for me. I don't know if it's an East Coast, West Coast thing. I don't know if you've had a better year than usual, but definitely a slower year for me. But that being said, I've bred way less than before. My goal is always to stay around 100 babies max. If I do over 100, I am stressed out. It is way too much work. I do not like it, and the hobby feels like work. I don't like it. And I only have 80 baby tubs, and again, I don't want more. So I'm not building more baby tubs. If I have too many babies, Then if I can't move them, I'm going to wholesale them and they're just gone because I can't keep more. So realistically, my goal is, I don't know, 8 clutches maybe, and a lot of my females are getting smaller and smaller, so I'm getting smaller clutches. Um, so yeah, so pygmies are the big thing. Um, what a special species, tough species.
Yeah. Do you have a game plan for how to get those started this year? Because you've obviously had some experience with some failure with those things, which I'm assuming is your probably one of your biggest heartbreaks is dealing
It
with
is.
those every single year.
So you're gonna laugh at me, but I have a very good game plan. It's called not taking care of them. So I have a deal with Shamels, and I breed him. He raises them. So we've had that deal. I'm like, are you sure you want me to do two females this year? Because if I do the two, you're gonna get 2 clutches, and I think I have 18 or 19 eggs right now, and they both they're at the 45, 50 day range now, so they're most likely all gonna hatch. But he's the one feeding him. He's the one going through the trial. The real reason I do that is that he breeds rodents, right? He's got ASF, he's got mice, he's got rats, he's got access to everything live. When you breed him, you've got everything as babies, right? So I've tried him the first year. I struggled so much. I was like, and he lives about an hour away. I don't know how many times I've driven to his place to go, like, can I just get a couple of like pink red hots and all that? And like I've tried everything. It's been a challenge. I was been very highly unsuccessful. So he's successfully raised some that are now vet adults, so like 2 or 3 years old, and yeah, so
Nice. So he has gotten a couple up to
yeah, he's gotten some success. I'm not gonna lie, not a lot, some.
yeah.
But I think we're looking like listening to Great Tree Python podcast, and all they ever talk about is chicken gizzards. I want to try chicken gizzards with them. I
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea, yeah.
So that's something that's never been tried. So definitely going to go down that route, see if that could help. And again, I want to bring on some people to help us in that endeavor. So I don't know. My deal with him is pretty simple. I breed him, you get him, you raise him. Whatever survives, we go half.
Yeah,
So
that'd be
I have
neat.
a yeah, I have a 1.2. So I don't want more. Anything like it's they're so cool because they're so tiny. They take no room. They've got great personality. Like they're just a fun little snake to have, and it's nice to have something different that doesn't take a lot of room. But the little babies are whole. It's I don't get why you have to force feed them for so long. And like the other species I really want to get into is blackheads, but blackheads in Canada is insanely hard to find something that is not a mixed Eastern and Western. So, and they're all ugly. Like they're like every single one I've ever seen for sale. One were insanely expensive and were like bloodied colored that you could tell they've
Yeah,
been
lots of
mixed
lone
and they're
males and stuff. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
a couple.
but they're not nice and they're still going to be wet. Like I've seen them as high as like 4 grand sometimes. Sometimes you'll find them at 2,500 or 5,000 for a bear, and it's just like 5,000 for a mixed. I don't know if they're locality or species. Are Eastern and Westerns considered the same,
I think
two
they're
different
all the same
species?
species, but I think people try to keep them separate if they
I think they
can.
should if you
But they
can,
use,
but
I think Exantic came out of Western, from what it
and
sounded
now
like, because they're like,
there's
oh,
probably
this
been
this
mixed.
is a Western and an Eastern, and it came from the same clutch, is what I think. I remember Derek Roddy talking about and some stuff. So yeah, yeah. I think I just listened to the Wouter Cock episode, and he made the Pearl pygmy python. I think I remember him talking about how he just like the major thing he did was just start assist feeding immediately, just like from week one kind of
Waiting.
thing, and just get right to it and don't let them lose any weight was one of his things. But yeah, I'm sure if we get Don or Dr. J and even Nick on, I'm sure they even Ryan Young, I'm sure they all have experience with all that fun stuff.
It'd be
But yeah,
fun.
no,
I definitely want that because be cool, man. They're not a cheap snake. Like they still got a certain amount of value. Like I've seen them once ever for sale at the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo, and I wish I would have taken that guy's name because he had them for sale. They were 800, and he every single one of them was a year old. And he's like, yeah, I just do, I just feed them and they survive. And I'm like, now I would be like, okay, I've got a million questions. We need to sit down and talk for an hour. Like, how do you do this? Because it's been my biggest struggle. So I'm like I want to learn. I really want to try that. I probably talked too much about pygmies, but yeah. So that's one of the things. But and you were talking about earlier about the species, like blackheads are extremely high on my list. So blackheads is like it's probably the number one species I'd like to add. It was always diamonds. I ended up getting myself a reduced pattern diamond that I imported from star pythons, and I got a trying to think what the line is of my male. He's gorgeous, like just greens all over and
Was it
yellows
the
and
Gothenburg stuff, or was
it
it something
might
else?
be.
I remember you were texting it to me. I just
Yeah,
forget off the top of my head.
it's one of those locality. You know what? Actually, it's one of the zoos. One of the zoo locality. If you chat, I can probably pull it up and figure it out. But yeah. So diamonds are a huge thing. The only problem is again diamonds. Like for Canada, there's like two people that have pure diamonds in Canada. There's none. Like every single diamond is mixed with carpets. It's mixed with a gamma line. It's mixed somewhere down the road that it's just a meh. It looks like a diamond, but it's something. And nobody breeds them. Like the last person I think that bred diamonds was
I
Don
think Don
Patterson,
bred them a
but we're
couple
talking about
years ago.
8 or 9 years ago. He hasn't done
I
it
thought it was more
recently.
recent than that. Like I
No,
thought I saw him post like one clutch where I was like, yeah, I bred them,
nope,
but these are all staying here, kind of thing.
nope.
But yeah,
And
interesting.
Don has gone very much towards the eclectic designer. I'll go with. But I don't think I think it's been that, and also Aslan, what's his name there, Michael Aslan. He used to breed him, but he got completely out of it. He's like, I couldn't sell him. Nobody was interested. Just wasn't worth it. He's like, nobody wanted him. I bred him, and then I remember him telling me, he's like, yes, yeah, I moved on from it. And it's just like, there's none. There's literally been nobody who bred diamond pythons in Canada in 8 or 9 years. Like, it's just sad. Like, you think we're a big ass country and we've got nothing, right? When you look at the states and it's like everywhere, they're popping up here or there. You could buy it anywhere, and it's anyway. So, I finally have a pair. Um, Shen and I imported a good amount from Star Python. Well, a good amount, four, and so hopefully in a few years maybe we'll get some luck. But the going that cold is an issue for me right now. I can't get my room under 61, so I need to get it to 50. So
Yeah, those will be. You need
there's
to set up the guest bedroom or
uh,
something.
there is oh man, and if the wife's not here right now, but like we have a house that looks like a normal house, right? It's a nice house. We have kids, we have everything. You would walk in, you'd never know there's a snake in here. You never know anything. It's I have one room in the basement, the back right, that's it. Everything else that is snake related needs to be there and nowhere else. So it's always a challenge of whatever I keep has to keep all in one room. So like when I tried to cool down, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the same room. I took them off the racks. Like I keep all in PVC cages, but took them off. Like they're all on. I built a base of wood like by 6 by 6 on casters that I can move everything. But like I literally take them off, put them directly on the floor, and it's we have basements here, right? So and there's a cement floor under the hardwood, so it's much colder. And like I'm like putting them right there, no heat. Lowest I got them was 61. So and there is a solution, and my solution is very simple. There's a cold room right beside me that is full cement that is under my porch that gets to about 33, like right at freezing. All I need to do is pierce one hole through and let air go right in, maybe attach it directly to the bottom cages, cool down those, but my wife will not let me pierce a hole through that foundation wall. And that's all I want to do. I
Yeah,
just
that's
want to do
probably
it.
not a great idea for the home insurance, but
But it's
yeah,
not a true foundation. It's a wall. It's a foundation wall, like it's cinder blocks, but it's into another foundation, like it's because it's the like a cold cellar. I have a full room that is all cement foundation, and like we put our alcohol and stuff in there and keep the food cold all winter and all that. So I have access to that cold. It just won't let me put a hole through it. Like just like a 6 inch hole right through it. I could get the cold right in. I made the mistake of asking. Anyway, so that's my battle. I keep everything in one room, and that's it's tough. Like I can't keep different species. Everything's got to fit that mold, right? So if I can't fit it that mold, it won't work in my room. So Anyway, I have no idea how I got to that rant, but that's where I'm
No,
at.
that's always fun to learn what people are thinking about. Yeah. Alrighty. So do we wanna wrap it up now?
Yeah, I think we should. So, how often do you want to do this? Are we like if we tell people, are we going to try to do it weekly? Maybe go bi-weekly. We'll play it by
I
ear.
think we maybe aim for weekly, but at the very least do bi-weekly. So if we can, I think we can probably do that, and we can pre-record stuff if we both have open time spots. Maybe depending on when guests are available too, and how things shake out. We could always do one-on-one stuff, but we can probably try to do our best to at least get somebody on for even a part of an episode, and we could record something to splice it together if we needed to. But yeah, we're gonna try to do our best to get some unknown people on, but we're definitely gonna get some of the same people that I think some people have probably listened to at least once or twice. But yeah, no,
Those
I'm.
people you just want to keep listening to, though.
Oh yeah. There's never enough Nick Mutton episodes, that's for sure.
Very
You
true.
can talk about the Pleistocene.
Do like the reptile phone. And this episode is brought by the what is it? The mutton fighting gloves. What I always say
Mutton workout gloves, lifting gloves,
something like
power
that.
lifting gloves.
Powerlifting
Yeah,
gloves. There you go.
there we go.
Fucking love it. It's so funny.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
anyway, yep, that sounds good. Do you want to throw
Alrighty.
your info up there?
Alrighty, so you guys can reach us on Instagram at Reptile Rejects, or you can reach out to either of us individually on Instagram or Messenger. You can find me at Michael double underscore Gillon on Instagram or Michael Gillon on Facebook. I'll have all this stuff in the show notes if you guys are curious and want to reach out with any show suggestions or topics.
For me,
And
Facebook. Facebook, I'm under my name, Dominic Carbonneau. Look at the show notes if you can't read say it, Dominic. I don't know how to say my name in English. And on Instagram, I do have an Instagram under my name, but that one is just personal friends. The statewide is Dom's Reptiles, very original. I also have domsreptiles.com, but I'll be honest, I haven't updated that in years. It's cool. It's got a collection of what my collection used to look like 6, 7 years ago, but it's got my email, my contact info, and all that kind of stuff. Shoot me a message. Always happy to chat. Yeah, except for that.
all right,
Anything else?
everybody, wherever you may be, take it easy.
Thanks for joining.